wonderful. Well, I'm Teresa de Grosbois. I'm the author of Mass Influence, which is now, I'm humbled to say, been a bestseller for over 2 years in 7 countries. And I love to teach people who are conscious entrepreneurs, people who are dedicated to living and teaching transformational principles inside their work. I teach them how to become more influential so they can have greater impact with their work. You know, my superpower is really influence. And it's funny because I didn't know that was my superpower until people started pointing it out to me all over the place. In fact, I originally started doing something completely different. I had started a charity and written some kids' books to raise money for the charity. And when I had people coming at me in droves saying, Teresa, how did you put 3 bestsellers on the, or 3 books on the bestseller list in only 8 months? That I started realizing, oh, there's a gift I have and there's something I know that most people don't know. And that's what caused initially the shift for me to realize there's a skill set here that I'm unaware of, but I'm competent at, that needs to be taught to other people. You know, it was interesting how I discovered that superpower, because I think, you know, as they say, fish don't know what water is. We often don't know what we're really good at until other people start pointing it out to you. And I remember I was sitting having coffee with one of my dearest friends, Dr. Sharon DePerrin, one day. Many of you may know her from being one of the top communications experts in North America and her work on Project Forgive. But Sean and I were sitting and having coffee, and I'm sitting there complaining about how I've had all this great success setting up my charity and publishing my kids' books, but I'm not loving being a children's author, and I'm not loving running a charity. And yet I have all these people coming at me saying, how did you become a bestseller so rapidly and with 3 books in such short order? And would you show me how to do that? And I was loving helping them all understand how influence really worked, and how you have to build relationships with other powerful, influential people in order to get the help you need. And I remember Sean just looked at me and started chuckling, and she said, honey, when God's sending you a flood of something you love, maybe you should pay attention. And it was one of those light bulb moments where I realized what I really loved and what I was really good at was right there in front of me all the time, but I couldn't see it because I was like the fish that didn't know what water was. You know, the biggest advice I could give you is follow your passion and follow your heart. Because one of the key principles of the highly influential is that they're really authentic. And there's a lot of different definitions of authenticity out there, but here's mine. Authenticity is just your inside voice saying the same thing as your outside voice. In other words, what you're thinking and what you're doing and saying are in alignment. And so the best thing you can do for your own success and your own influence is to actually find that thing that really lights you up. And for a lot of people, that can be a challenge, figuring out what is that thing that really lights me up. And, you know, I love how Aristotle first spoke about happiness. You know, there's been a lot of research in the last 50 to 100 years about happiness, but the conversation around happiness actually started with one of our earliest philosophers. And Aristotle talked about the difference between hedonistic happiness over here and eudaimonia, or eudaimonistic happiness, which is the happiness that comes from actually being of great service to your community or the world at large. And he talked about hedony and hedonistic happiness as not being inappropriate, but they're very fleeting. You know, that joy you get from drinking a good latte, or for me, it's having an awesome piece of pumpkin pie, you know. Whereas when you really know you're of service to the world, that lastingness settles into your core and tends to be an ongoing lasting happiness where you're not needing more of something to make yourself happy again. You're not needing that second piece of pumpkin pie or whatever it is. And I think finding your passion, finding that thing that lights you up, where you're really of service to the world, is actually the best thing you can do for your own influence and your own superpower. You know, I love the book that Janet Attwood wrote on the passion test. There's actually a tool that Janet Attwood developed called the passion test. And it's a series of questions you work through to help you figure out what really lights you up in life. And I actually recommend do the passion test every few months, because it can change. As you figure out what your passion is and you start to lean in, as a lot of our experts are talking about these days, lean toward what you love, you'll find it gets clearer and clearer, and your path gets clearer and clearer. So I recommend you keep doing that test until it's so clear that there's no doubt in your mind as to what your passion is and why you were put here on earth.